Hi guys, Sai here to talk about Man of War Corsair by Evil Twin Artworks. Off the bat, I want to commend the ambition involved in this game. What it tries to do is honestly way too much. Blend the story into an RPG setting where you control a ship, all the crew members, and basically participate in several mini-games to create several experiences culminating in one adventure. The problem here is none of these mini-games are especially great. I played the game for about 4 hours to get a good feeling for where the game was heading before I gave up, mainly feeling that the game had a bit of a side mission sickness to it. What I was hoping for was a true Man of War feeling in a game where we have sea warfare going on between warring fleets, but in this game it tries to place you in one of the vessels to take control of the sailing, guns and crew all at the same time. This sounds harder than it seems, but then it feels like the enemy is somewhat incompetent. The sound is pretty good. It gives a decent impression that you are on a pirate style adventure, but the Warhammer universe plays into that quite strongly anyway. Weapons, explosions, screaming and monsters, they all sound pretty good, and your crew often speak in pirate tongue, just to remind you that it's a sea game.
My captain and I made us our fair share of enemies along the way, I reckon. And greed pushed us down some dark paths.
At times it's a little bit too Pirates of the Caribbean and forgets its place in the old world, but again I can forgive this interpretation of it as the GW lore lends itself heavily to it anyway. The model detail's okay. At times the rendering feels quite poor on some of the textures. The boat looks a little flat, as do fire and water effects. The weather doesn't really play into the game like you think it should either. The way the game makes you play is you go to a town, learn some of the adventure marks and options to equip and buy your crew or trade goods. The idea being you become a merchant in the old world. I honestly quite like this idea, but it would have worked better in a large scale online game similar to World of Warcraft. That way having a personal adventure would be more fitting narrative to an RPG. After all, at times in this game, as well as feeling like you are every character, you're also the boat and cannons too. It all gets quite abstract and overwhelming at times, with dials everywhere. I actually found the camera to be a bit of a hindrance at times too, and I often would have no idea what direction I was supposed to be looking. It's easy to nitpick at the game's faults, but I think it's the massive ambition in place that really faults the game. It tries to be the jack of all trades but ultimately fails to be spectacular at any of them, especially the ship-to-ship combat that you would expect to be the main focus. Man of War Corsair fails to give the sense of adventure and comes off as a bit of a boring side quest game instead. Honestly, I think Man of War fans would have enjoyed a more subtle tabletop sea adventure. A little more like X-Wing perhaps, but with some RPG elements thrown into the mix between missions. First and foremost, Man of War should be about the ships and not the individuals on board. In my opinion, that's where it fails the most. This isn't a scathing attack on this game, and it's good to have this ambition, but sometimes ambition can be scaled back to a smaller, neater and more polished experience. Overall, I'd rate this game a 6 out of 10 for its ambition alone. Even if it fails somewhat, I'd like to see this tried again in the future, but with a bigger emphasis on the rules and gameplay of the Man of War tabletop game. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.